Hello and welcome to the Commander's Quarters, your Magic the Gathering source that helps you command your budget. This show and episodes like this one are possible thanks to viewers like you. If you're looking for an easy way to help support this show, make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. Also, hit that bell notification icon so you don't miss any new episodes. You can also go check out our playmats and other merchandise at thecommandersquarters.com. Another easy way to support this show is with our TCG player affiliate links. So whether you're buying a deck or individual cards, you can use this general link right here or one in the description. And the final way that you can support this show is by supporting us directly by becoming a patron. There are many benefits to being a patron, and I truly couldn't do this without all their support. There's even a brand new Brigadier General tier where you can get a shout out on a Commander's Quarters episode that's dedicated to you. Hey everyone, Mitch coming in from the Commander's Quarters studio. Welcome to the show. Today's episode comes to you courtesy of Carlos, who's been supporting this channel as a Golden Pig tier patron. I truly couldn't do this without the support from amazing patrons like Carlos, so again, Carlos, thank you so much. And for the personalized deck tag, Carlos wanted a 5-color Human Zombies Commander deck, and for the commander for this deck, we are going to be utilizing none other than Kenny. That's right, Kenrith the Returned King has returned. Kenny is back and at it again. Kenny is a 5/5 human noble for 4 and a white, and he has a lot of tech, so here we go. By paying a red, all creatures gain trample and haste until end of turn. By paying 1 into green, we put a +1 counter on target creature. By paying 2 and a white, target player gains 5 life. By paying 3 and a blue, target player draws a card. And by paying 4 and a black, put target creature card from a graveyard onto the battlefield under its owner's control. Yeah, that's a lot of text and a lot of things that Kenny can do. Kenny is essentially a Swiss Army knife that can help us out in a lot of situations. Again, this deck is going to focus on both humans and zombies, and Kenny can help out in multiple ways. He can give all of our creatures haste to help them swing right away, and trample to help get damage through. He can grow them, gain us some life if needed, draw us a card if needed, or help get some of our key creatures back from our graveyard. Now, outside of Kenrith, every single human and zombie, and well, every other card in this deck is going to follow the budget restriction of being less than $1. And believe me, there are still some incredibly powerful and spicy things that we can do with cards that meet that restriction. So without further ado, let's jump into it. First up, we've got a ramp, so let's talk about some turn 1 plays like Search for Tomorrow, Fauna Fertility, and Diligent Farmhand. Search for Tomorrow has to spend 2 for just a green, and it lets us get a basic into play untapped. And then both Fauna Fertility and Diligent Farmhand do the exact same thing, but one is an achievement and one's a creature. Essentially, by paying 1 in a green and sacrificing them, we get a basic land into play tapped. And actually, Diligent Farmhand has been errated, so though it doesn't say it on the card, this is actually a human druid. But anyways, next up at 2 mana, we've got Rampant Growth, which is going to get us 1 basic into play tapped. Though this is not a human, it's still a very solid way to ramp. Regardless, at 3 mana, we've got Roiling Regrowth, Springboom Druid, and Harrow. Each of these are very similar, having us sacrifice 1 land to go get 2 basics into play. Both Roiling Regrowth and Springboom Druid have them come into play tapped, and Harrow has them come into play untapped. Regardless, these are fantastic ways not only to ramp, but also to really help us fix our mana. And in a 5-color deck, we definitely need help with that. But now let's talk about some more ways to ramp and fix our mana with Cultivate, Grow from the Ashes, and Vastwood Surge. Cultivate gets us 2 basics, 1 comes into play tapped and 1 goes into our hand. And then Grow from the Ashes gets us 1 basic into play untapped, or 2 if we kicked it. Finally, there's Vastwood Surge, which is going to get us 2 basics into play tapped, and also if we kick that, we get 2 +1 counters on every single creature we control. So this can ramp us, and later on in the game, it can power up our humans and our zombies. And speaking of those kinds of creatures, first up, let's talk about some fantastic humans in this deck like General's Enforcer, Jarina Kudrow, and Thraben Doomsayer. General's Enforcer says legendary humans you control have indestructible, so yeah, Kenny is going to be really hard to deal with when this is in play. On top of that, by paying 2 white/black, we exile target card from a graveyard, and if it was a creature card, we get a 1/1 human soldier creature token. So we can basically recycle either our creatures or our opponent's creatures to make even more humans. And speaking of making humans, Jarina Kudrow says, when it enters the battlefield, create a 1/1 white human soldier creature token for each time you've cast a commander from the command zone this game. On top of that, other humans you control get +2/+0. So the more times that we cast good old Kenny, the more tokens that we're getting. But perhaps more importantly, Jarina pumps our humans and helps them hit a lot harder. And then Thraben Doomsayer has tap, create a 1/1 white human soldier creature token, and it's got Fateful Hour as long as you've got 5 or less life. Other creatures you control get +2/+2. So this can make a ton of tokens for us throughout the game, and if we're nearly dead, our army gets a lot stronger. And speaking of making a ton of tokens, let's talk about Handwire Militia Captain. It has at the beginning of your upkeep, if you control 4 or more creatures, transform Handwire Militia Captain. It turns into Westvale Cult Leader, and it has power toughness equal to the number of creatures we control, but more importantly, at the beginning of our end step, we get a 1/1 white and black human cleric creature token onto the battlefield. So this can become more and more powerful throughout the game as we build our army, and this can build an army for us. Speaking of which, there's Maja Bredegard Protector, which has other creatures you control get +1/+1, and also, whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, create a 1/1 white human warrior creature token. So Maja is a fantastic anthem for our other creatures, and also she is a token generating engine with all of our land ramp. And speaking of a token engine, let's talk about Elspeth Sun's Nemesis. Elspeth's -2 is create 2/1/1 human soldier creature tokens, so we can pump out a lot of tokens with this, especially since we can get Elspeth back with that escape. But next up, we've got even more ways to make human tokens with Ulvenwald Mysteries, Call the Coppercoats, and Increasing Devotion. Ulvenwald Mysteries is going to give us clues whenever our non-token creatures die, and then whenever we sacrifice a clue, we get a 1/1 white human soldier creature token. And then Call the Coppercoats can give us an absurd number of human tokens, essentially 1 for every single creature that our opponents have if we pay the strive cost. And then Increasing Devotion is a bit more straightforward, giving us 5 human creature tokens when we cast it, and 10 when we flash it back. But next up, we've got 2 non-humans that can help our humans out as well with Harmonious Archon and Sigarda Huron's Grace. Harmonious Archon's going to give us 2/1/1 humans when it enters the battlefield, but they're not going to be 1/1s actually, because when this is in play, non-Archon creatures we have base power toughness 3/3. And actually, it's not just our creatures, but all non-Archon creatures, and typically our opponents aren't gonna have Archons. So in a way, this kind of evens the playing field for every single creature in play, except for this Harmonious Archon. And because pretty much all of our tokens are going to be smaller than 3/3s, well, they're kind of getting a boost from this. On top of that, keep in mind that if we've got an Anthem or 2 in play, our opponents are going to be in big trouble. Finally, though, let's talk about Sigarda Huron's Grace, which says, you and humans you control have hexproof, and by paying 2, we can exile a card from our graveyard and get a 1/1 white human soldier creature token onto the battlefield. So Sigarda not only protects us, but also all of our humans, and she also helps us make humans too. But now that we've talked about the humans, it's time to move on to the zombies. And to start off the zombies, we're actually going to be talking about a human with Doom Dissenter, and when it dies, we get a 2/2 black zombie creature token. But next up, we've got a zombie that makes zombies with Graveyard Marshal. By paying 2 and a black, we exile a creature card from our graveyard to create a tapped 2/2 black zombie creature token. And then Liliana's Devotee is yet another human that actually helps out our zombies and can make zombies too. It has zombies you control get +1/+0, and at the beginning of your end step, if a creature died this turn, you may pay 1 and a black. If you do, create a 2/2 black zombie creature token. Regardless, next up, we've got a human that can make us a ton of zombies. Zathra Necromancer has, whenever it or another human creature you control dies, create a tapped 2/2 black zombie creature token. This might be one of the best cards in this deck, and also it's gotta be one of the most flavorful for a human zombie tribal deck. Regardless, another way to make a ton of zombies is with Overseer of the Damned. When it enters the battlefield, we can destroy target creature, and whenever a non-token creature an opponent controls dies, we create a tapped 2/2 black zombie creature token. And then Newscraft Mob makes us zombies in a different way. It comes into play with 5 counters on it, and whenever a player casts a spell, we remove one of those counters from it, and then if we do, we get a zombie creature token. So 5 spells for 5 zombies, yeah, that can happen in just 1 trip around the table in Commander. Regardless, we're nowhere near done with our zombie tokens just yet, so Dreadhorde Invasion, Zombie Infestation, and Corpse Weft are next. Dreadhorde Invasion says at the beginning of your upkeep, you lose 1 life and amass 1, so again, when we're amassing, we make a zombie army, or we grow our zombie army. And then Zombie Infestation says discard 2 cards, create a 2/2 black zombie creature token. Corpse Swept is yet another enchantment that can help us out. By paying 1 and a black, we exile 1 or more creature cards from our graveyard and put an XX black zombie horror creature token onto the battlefield tap, where X is twice the number of cards exiled this way. So with this, we can utilize a lot of cards for 1 massive zombie, or utilize a few cards at a time for smaller ones. Regardless, even our opponents can help us make zombies with Curse of Disturbance. It's an Aura Curse that says enchant player. Whenever enchanted player is attacked, create a 2/2 black zombie creature token. Each opponent attacking that player does the same. And then Gaunt Pharaoh's Gift is an artifact that says at the beginning of combat on your turn, you may exile a creature card from your graveyard. If you do, create a token that's a copy of that card, except it's a 4/4 black zombie. It gains haste until end of turn. So this can essentially eternalize creatures from our graveyard, and for our small creatures, it makes them even more powerful. And speaking of making our creatures powerful, let's talk about Havengul Runebinder. By paying 2 and a blue, we can tap it to exile a creature card from our graveyard and put a 2/2 black zombie creature token onto the battlefield, then put a +1 counter on each zombie creature we control. So again, we can utilize our creatures in our graveyard in a different way, making zombies and growing all of our zombies too. And speaking of making our zombies more powerful, let's talk about Vizier the Scorpion, Gleaming Overseer, and Eternal Skylord. The first two are going to amass 1 when they come into play, and Eternal Skylord amasses 2. But more importantly, each of them can make our zombie tokens more deadly. Vizier the Scorpion gives our zombie tokens Death Touch, Gleaming Overseer gives Menace and Hexproof, and Eternal Skylord gives Flying. But we also have some ways to help them even more with things like Graph Harvest and Intangible Virtue. Graph Harvest says zombies you control have Menace, and by paying 3 and a black, we can exile a creature card from our graveyard and get a 2/2 black zombie. And actually, Intangible Virtue is going to help all of our creature tokens, whether they be humans or zombies. It's going to give all of them +1/+1 and Vigilance. Now, as good as all these effects are, there's still one in my opinion that stands above the rest, and that's going to be the Golden Pig of this deck. And the Golden Pig for this deck is Aven Windguide. Aven Windguide is a 2/3 bird warrior with Flying and Vigilance that costs 2 white/blue. It says creature tokens you control have Flying and Vigilance, and it's got an embalm cost of 4 white/blue. So, though this is a bird warrior, when it's embalmed, it's actually a zombie bird warrior, so it can be friends with all of our other zombies. And when this is embalmed, it's going to be a token, and again, it gives all of our creature tokens Flying and Vigilance. So whether it be our human tokens or our zombie tokens, we can more easily swing out with them. Flying is a fantastic form of evasion, which can generally help us get through. And with Vigilance, we can still swing out and have our creatures back on defense as well. So because Aven Windguide is helping both our zombies and our humans in a fantastic way, that's why it's the Golden Pig. Regardless, now that we've talked about our plans, it's time for us to talk about how to throw a wrench into our opponent's plans. So first up, we're going to be running some counter spells with Negate, Unwind, and Neutralize. Negate's going to counter target non-creature spell, Unwind's going to do the same, and also one tap up to 3 lands, and Neutralize is going to counter a spell, but we can also cycle it for 2. And then there's Depart the Realm, which is going to bounce target non-land permanent back to its owner's hand, and it's got a foretell cost for a blue. And then Rip Apart is an extremely versatile removal spell that can deal 3 damage to target creature or planeswalker, or destroy target artifact or enchantment. Next up, we're going to be running Despark, which can exile target permanent with converted mana cost 4 or greater. And then Mythos of Nethroi is going to destroy target non-land permanent if it's a creature, or if green and white was spent to cast it, we can just destroy any target non-land permanent. And then Crush Contraband can get rid of multiple things, exiling target artifact or enchantment. Next up, we've got some mass removal spells with Aether Gale, Slash the Ranks, and Time Wipe. Aether Gale is going to bounce 6 target non-land permanents back to their owner's hands. Slash the Ranks is going to destroy all creatures and planeswalkers except for commanders. And then Time Wipe says return a creature you control to its owner's hand, then destroy all creatures. Next up, there's Chroma's Vengeance, which says destroy all artifacts, creatures, and enchantments, and it's got cycling for 3. So if we need to wipe everything out, great, and if not, we can just cycle it away for something else. Finally, Perplexing Test can be a game-ending spell in this deck. It's either going to bounce all creature tokens or all non-creature tokens. So if we've got a ton of creature tokens in play and our opponents don't, well, they're going to be in big trouble. But now we need to talk about how we're going to get to all these great cards. First up, we actually have a human that can really help us out with Mentor of the Meek. It says whenever another creature with power 2 or less enters the battlefield under your control, you may pay 1 if you do draw a card. Again, we've got a lot of creatures entering the battlefield that meet that requirement, including a lot of our creature tokens. But then we've just got some straight up draw spells with Read the Bones and Painful Truce. Read the Bones is going to let us scry 2, draw 2, then lose 2, and Painful Truce can have us draw up to 3 and lose 3. Next up, we've got Faithless Looting, which has draw 2, discard 2, and flashback for 2 and a red. Another way to draw and discard comes with Reign of Revelation, which draws us 3 and discards us 1. And the Behold the Multiverse has Foretell for 1 and a blue, and it's got Scry 2, then draw 2. Next up, we've got Chemist's Insight, which says draw 2, and it's got Jumpstart, so we can recast from our graveyard by discarding a card. And then Hieroglyphic Illumination's either going to draw us 2 cards, or we can cycle it to draw 1. Next up, though, we've got Precognitive Perception, which draws us 3 cards, and we get to Scry 3 if we cast it during our main phase. And finally, we've got Factor Fiction and Epiphany at the Drown Yard. Factor Fiction makes us reveal the top 5 cards of our library, and opponent puts those in 2 piles, and we get 1 of those in our hand and 1 into our graveyard. And then Epiphany the Drown Yard is essentially the exact same thing, but kind of in reverse and for X plus 1. Regardless, now that we've tackled the cards in this deck, let's talk about the price. As I said at the beginning of this episode, every single card in this deck outside of good old Kenny is less than $1. So the total estimated cost of this deck is quite budget, even including Kenny at $32.65. Also, make sure that you keep in mind that this doesn't include heavily played or damaged cards, so it could be even less than that. On top of that, this does include basics at 10 cents a piece, so if you've already got those, even more savings. Though, do keep in mind that this estimated cost doesn't include the cost of shipping, so depending on where you're at, that can definitely vary. Also, make sure you're on the lookout for the Break the Bank for this episode, which should be coming out in the near future. On that episode, there are some special cards that Carlos wanted to highlight for this deck, and with a Break the Bank version, we are able to up the budget to include them. So again, make sure you're on the lookout for that episode. And with that, the show has come to a close, so it's my turn here from you. So in the comments below, let me know your thoughts on this episode are, and as always, thanks again and have a good one.